No one warned you. Not really. Not about how the world tests men, not about how power moves in silence, not about how kindness without strength becomes a liability. What if the advice you needed most was never spoken because it was too uncomfortable, too dangerous, or too honest? You were told to be good, to be patient, to wait your turn, but no one explained what happens to those who wait in a world that rewards strategy over innocence. This is not about becoming cruel, it is about becoming lucid. Today you will hear the advice your father should have given you, the kind that forges inner authority rather than approval. As you listen, comment the phrase, "I choose clarity," if something resonates. Subscribe, like this video, and stay until the end, because there is a quiet truth waiting there, one that changes how you see yourself and everyone else. To understand this advice, you must return to a time when survival depended on clarity, not comfort. In the fractured cities of Renaissance Italy, thinkers like Machiavelli observed men stripped of illusions, navigating power without moral anesthesia. Fathers then did not teach feelings first, they taught consequences. Over time, this knowledge became softened, buried under ideals meant to protect, not prepare. Philosophy shifted from forming strong men to forming agreeable ones, and psychology followed, teaching adaptation instead of mastery. This wisdom was labeled dangerous because it exposes uncomfortable truths. The world is not fair, intentions do not protect you, and respect is rarely given to those who ask for it. These lessons vanished as society tried to remove pain instead of meaning, leaving you with wounds you could never name, only feel. The first thing your father should have taught you is this: the world does not respond to who you are inside, it responds to how you move, what you tolerate, and what you project. As a child, you are protected by innocence. As an adult, innocence without structure becomes exposure. Many men grow up believing that if they are sincere, patient, and morally correct, life will eventually reward them. This belief is not virtue, it is delay. Machiavelli understood something most fathers never articulate. Reality is governed less by fairness than by perception, leverage, and timing. You can be good, but if you are not respected, your goodness will be used against you. This is not pessimism, it is lucidity. You were likely taught to explain yourself, to justify your intentions, to make sure others understood that you meant well. But excessive explanation is not transparency, it is weakness disguised as honesty. The more you explain, the more you place your value in the hands of someone else's judgment. A man who must constantly clarify himself unconsciously signals uncertainty about his own position. Power, psychological power, begins with self-validation. This does not mean arrogance, it means internal authority. Machiavelli would say that men respect those who seem grounded in themselves, not those who seek permission to exist. Another truth rarely spoken by fathers is that loyalty is not proven by words or emotions, but by behavior under pressure. Many men grow up equating closeness with trust, vulnerability with safety. Yet the world is filled with people who feel close to you until your circumstances change. Machiavelli observed that men are faithful when it costs them nothing. When loyalty demands sacrifice, most disappear. A father should teach you to observe patterns, not promises. Who stays when you cannot give? Who respects you when you say no? Who benefits from your confusion? These questions reveal more than any declaration of love or friendship ever will. You were probably told to be liked. What you should have been taught is to be respected, even if it cost you affection. Being liked makes you adaptable. Being respected makes you stable. The need to be liked creates internal fragmentation because you begin to adjust your boundaries depending on who is watching. Over time, you lose coherence. You become many versions of yourself, none of them solid. Respect, on the other hand, emerges when your behavior is consistent, your standards are visible, and your presence does not bend under emotional pressure. This is why silence is often more powerful than explanation. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. Words, when used defensively, only reveal you. There is also the matter of conflict, something many fathers avoid teaching because they fear hardening their sons. But conflict is inevitable, and avoiding it does not make you peaceful, it makes you predictable. Machiavelli did not glorify violence, but he understood confrontation as a psychological arena. If you always retreat, people learn where your limits are and they will push just beyond them. A father should teach you how to stand firm without emotional explosion, how to hold your ground without begging to be understood. The man who remains calm while others escalate quietly dominates the interaction, because calm signals control. You were likely encouraged to follow your passions, to trust your feelings, to listen to your heart. What was missing is this: feelings are information, not instruction. Machiavelli saw that men who act purely from emotion are easy to manipulate because their reactions are predictable. Inner strength is built when you can feel deeply without acting impulsively. A father should teach emotional discipline, not emotional suppression. Discipline means you choose when and how to respond. It means desire does not dictate your decisions. It means you can walk away from what feels good now for what serves you later. Another uncomfortable lesson is that not everyone deserves access to you. Many men grow up believing availability equals virtue. They answer every call, fix every problem, carry burdens that are not theirs. Over time, they become useful but invisible. Machiavelli would say that scarcity creates value. When your time, attention, and energy are not freely given, people recalibrate how they treat you. This is not manipulation. It is self-respect made visible. A father should teach you discernment, the ability to choose where your energy goes without guilt. You were also probably taught that success would speak for itself, that if you worked hard and stayed humble, recognition would follow. This is one of the most damaging half-truths. Effort without positioning often leads to resentment, not reward. Machiavelli understood the theater of life. Outcomes matter, but perception shapes outcomes. You must learn to be seen without becoming performative, to assert your presence without arrogance. This requires strategic restraint, knowing when to step forward and when to remain still. The man who is always visible becomes noise. The man who appears at the right moment becomes authority. Perhaps the most painful advice never given is this: some people will only respect you after you disappoint them. As long as you meet every expectation, you remain controllable. When you say no, when you withdraw compliance, when you choose yourself without apology, reactions emerge. Some will leave, some will criticize, some will attempt guilt. This is not loss, it is filtration. A father should teach you that losing approval is often the price of self-definition. Machiavelli's wisdom is unsettling because it removes the fantasy that life is a moral classroom where good behavior guarantees safety. Instead, it reveals life as a psychological landscape where awareness is protection. This does not mean becoming cold or cynical, it means becoming awake. When you understand these dynamics, you stop personalizing rejection, conflict, and resistance. You see them as signals, not verdicts. You stop asking, "What is wrong with me?" and start asking, "What is being revealed here?" And yet, this is only the surface, because once you begin to see how the world operates, a deeper challenge appears: how to hold this knowledge without becoming bitter, how to be strategic without losing your soul, how to remain human in a world that rewards masks. That is where the real work begins and where most men turn back, choosing comfort over clarity. Once you accept that the world does not operate on fairness but on perception, another danger emerges, one your father also should have warned you about: the slow corruption of the self. Knowledge without inner grounding can turn into armor, and armor worn too long becomes a prison. Machiavelli is often misunderstood here. He is not teaching you to become ruthless for the sake of domination, but to understand the paradox of power. If you do not master the game will master you, but if you become the game, you lose yourself. This is the line few men learn to walk. The ego is the first trap. When you begin to see patterns others ignore, you may feel superior, awake among the blind. This is intoxicating. But superiority is just another dependency because it still requires comparison. A man ruled by his ego is as predictable as a man ruled by fear. Machiavelli observed that rulers fell not because they lacked intelligence, but because they confused control with invincibility. The moment you believe you are above consequence, reality corrects you. True strength is quiet because it does not need to prove itself. Another illusion your father should have exposed is the belief that detachment means indifference. Many men, after being disappointed, decide to feel less, to close themselves off. They call it strength, but it is only numbness. Machiavelli did not advocate emotional death, he advocated emotional sovereignty. Sovereignty means you can feel without being governed by feeling. It means compassion does not turn into self-betrayal, and detachment does not turn into emptiness. The danger is not caring too much. The danger is caring without boundaries. Modern society feeds a dangerous contradiction. You are told to express everything, yet punished for expressing the wrong thing. You are encouraged to be authentic, yet rejected when your authenticity disrupts comfort. This creates internal conflict. Many men oscillate between repression and oversharing, silence and explosion. A father should teach you calibration. Not everyone deserves the truth, not because you are lying, but because truth without context becomes a weapon against you. Machiavelli understood that revelation must be timed. Even honesty requires strategy. There is also the paradox of desire. You are taught to chase what you want aggressively, to never settle, to always want more. But endless desire creates internal poverty. When you are always reaching, you are never rooted. Machiavelli saw that men who are visibly hungry are easily manipulated because scarcity lives inside them. The man who can delay gratification, who does not rush to possess, radiates abundance. This is why restraint often attracts more than pursuit. Desire mastered becomes magnetism. Desire unleashed becomes desperation. Your father should also have warned you about the cost of being needed. Being needed feels powerful at first. People rely on you, call you, depend on you. But over time, being needed without being respected turns into resentment. You become functional, not valued. Machiavelli would say that dependency should never be one-sided. If others need you, they must also fear losing you. This is not cruelty, it is balance. When you remove your presence and nothing changes, you are never essential, only convenient. Another hidden truth is that moral language is often used to control behavior. Words like selfish, cold, or changed are rarely observations. They are pressure tactics. When you begin to set boundaries, people who benefited from your lack of them will frame your growth as a flaw. A father should teach you this early. Criticism often increases when you stop being useful. Machiavelli saw reputation as a battlefield. Not every attack deserves defense. Sometimes the most powerful response is non-engagement, letting time reveal intentions. There is also the conflict between visibility and privacy. In a world obsessed with exposure, silence is suspicious. Yet Machiavelli knew that what is hidden is often safer. When people know less about your plans, they project less onto you. Mystery creates psychological space. This does not mean living in secrecy, it means selective disclosure. Your inner world is not a public resource. A father should teach you that intimacy is earned, not granted by proximity. As you integrate these ideas, you may feel a tension inside you, the pull between who you were taught to be and who you are becoming. This tension is unavoidable. Growth always feels like betrayal to your former self. You may grieve the version of you that wanted to be seen as good, kind, agreeable, but maturity replaces the need to be seen as good with the need to be whole. Machiavelli understood that coherence is more important than approval. A fragmented man can be controlled, a coherent one cannot. The deeper truth is this: power without purpose rots the soul. If all you seek is advantage, you become empty, even if you win. The advice your father should have given you is incomplete without this warning. Strategy must serve meaning, or it becomes another addiction. The goal is not dominance over others, but sovereignty over yourself. This is the difference between manipulation and mastery, and this is where the final transformation begins, because knowing these principles is not enough. Knowledge that stays in the mind creates arrogance or anxiety. Knowledge embodied changes how you walk, speak, choose, and withdraw. The question now is not what you understand, but what you are willing to practice, quietly, consistently, without applause. That is where real power is built, and where most men hesitate, waiting for permission that will never come. Now comes the part your father never modeled clearly enough: how to live these truths without turning rigid, bitter, or performative. Knowledge only transforms you when it becomes behavior, and behavior only stabilizes when it is practiced deliberately. The first practice is silence with intention. This does not mean withdrawing from life, but reducing unnecessary explanations. For the next weeks, notice how often you justify yourself when no justification is required. Each time you feel the impulse to explain your motives, pause. Ask yourself whether the explanation is meant to clarify or to seek approval. If it is the second, remain silent. Silence recalibrates your inner axis. It teaches your nervous system that you do not need validation to exist. The second practice is boundary rehearsal. Most men fail at boundaries not because they lack courage, but because they have never rehearsed them internally. Before situations arise, decide in advance what you will tolerate and what you will not. When the moment comes, act without emotional drama. A boundary delivered calmly is far more powerful than one delivered with anger. Expect resistance. Resistance does not mean you are wrong, it means the previous dynamic is dying. A father should teach you that discomfort during boundary setting is not danger, it is transition. The third practice is selective availability. For a period of time, reduce how accessible you are. Do not announce it. Simply respond less, initiate less, rescue less. Observe what changes, who respects the distance, who becomes entitled, who disappears. This is not a test, it is a revelation. You will learn who values your presence and who only values your function. This knowledge alone can restructure your relationships more effectively than years of conversation. The fourth practice is emotional discipline. When something triggers you, delay your response. Not forever, just long enough to choose rather than react. This gap between stimulus and response is where sovereignty lives. Write down what you feel, but do not act on it immediately. Over time, you will notice that many urges fade when they are not obeyed instantly. This does not make you cold, it makes you stable. Stability is attractive because it signals safety and strength at the same time. The fifth practice is internal approval. At the end of each day, ask yourself one question: did I respect my own standards today? Not did others approve, not did I avoid conflict, but did I act in alignment with my values? This trains your identity to anchor inward. A man who measures himself by his own code becomes difficult to manipulate because external praise and criticism lose their leverage. Another essential practice is intentional withdrawal. When a dynamic feels draining, unclear, or disrespectful, step back without explanation. Watch what happens in the absence of your effort. Many illusions collapse when you stop maintaining them. If someone only engages when you initiate, you have your answer. If peace enters when you withdraw, you have learned something important about where your energy was leaking. You must also practice discernment and vulnerability. Vulnerability is powerful when shared with those who have earned access. It is destructive when shared indiscriminately. Before opening up, ask yourself whether the listener has demonstrated discretion, consistency, and respect over time. If not, keep your inner world private. Privacy is not dishonesty, it is protection. A father should teach you that your story is not currency. There will be obstacles. Guilt will arise, especially if you are conditioned to equate self-denial with virtue. Loneliness may appear when old dynamics fall away. Doubt will whisper that you are becoming selfish or distant. These voices are echoes of a former identity dissolving. Do not argue with them, observe them. Growth often feels wrong before it feels right. because it challenges familiar patterns, even harmful ones. Another obstacle is impatience. You may want immediate results, instant respect, rapid transformation, but psychological authority compounds slowly. Consistency over time is what reshapes how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. Do not announce your changes. Let behavior speak, let absence speak, let calm speak. Machiavelli understood that the most effective shifts are subtle, not dramatic. Finally, anchor all of this in meaning. Ask yourself what kind of man you are becoming, not just what kind of power you are gaining. Strategy without purpose leads to emptiness. Purpose without strategy leads to exhaustion. The integration of both creates inner solidity. You are not here to dominate others, but to stop being dominated by unconscious patterns. That is the real inheritance your father should have given you, the ability to stand in yourself without apology, without aggression, without fear. Practice these things quietly. No one needs to know. The transformation will be visible anyway. What you have heard today is not comfort, and it was never meant to be. It is orientation. The advice your father should have given you was not about becoming harder, colder, or superior, but about becoming anchored. You were not meant to drift through life waiting to be chosen, understood, or validated. You were meant to choose yourself first, quietly, consistently, without asking permission. You now know that respect is not demanded, it is generated, that silence can be strength, that boundaries reveal truth faster than explanations, that loyalty is behavior, not sentiment, and that power without meaning hollows a man from the inside. These are not ideas to admire, but principles to live. If you apply them, some doors will close, some people will fall away, and certain versions of you will no longer survive. That is not failure, that is alignment. The world will test you the moment you stop overgiving, over-explaining, and overextending. Let it. Tests are how reality confirms change. Remember this. The goal was never to dominate others, but to stop abandoning yourself. So ask yourself, honestly, without performance or fear, what would change in your life if you stopped seeking approval and started living from inner authority? Sit with that question, let it disturb you. And if this message reached you at the right moment, stay with this path, explore deeper, and continue this work. Clarity is not loud, but it is irreversible.